Hey everyone, welcome back to Pop Incursions. I'm Nico, and today I thought let's do a video a little bit different than usual. Let's have lunch together. So my idea for Let's Have Lunch Together is a possibly new way to do maybe a once a month or once a week type of vlog video, where instead of having the usual sit down for either the breakdown, a discussion or a pop review, we literally talk as we have lunch, or as I have lunch at least. And it's a very different way compared to a review or a breakdown or a scripted video, where let's have lunch together and let's just talk about whatever topic is on our mind. So I am going to get my lunch ready and then we shall proceed. So I have just finished eating because I wasn't having anything big. I just had some crackers with some continental hams and cheeses, something I like to do quite a lot. So I thought that these types of videos could be nice because it's really more of a chat and just talking about what's on our minds. And it's obviously a lot more informal and not scripted as well. I have been preparing today other videos that are more in the usual format, but I often watch a lot of YouTube while I'm preparing as just something in the background, but obviously things grab my attention. And as well, in general, this week there has been a lot of kind of leaks coming from Marvel. Now, I will give you this opportunity. This potentially could have spoilers. Not necessarily spoilers as in what's going to happen, but more who could be in a project or what's the project about. So more about news, I suppose, than spoilers. But if you're very strict, I don't want to know until I get to the film, then maybe this is the time to duck out. But I try not to discuss those types of spoilers and rather just news. But here we are. So this week we've heard a lot about Doctor Strange 3. And obviously at the end of Multiverse of Madness we saw Clea, and Doctor Strange has caused an incursion and Clea wanted him to come with her to go and fix it. And the third film will continue with that and will apparently take place immediately after Multiverse of Madness with Clea, and the Black Priests will be in the movie as well, and that's from the comics and they're related to the multiverse. And kind of apart from that, there's not really anything else that comes to mind. I know there are some little details here and there, but for the most part it's going to deal with Incursions. Clea will be there and they will also meet the Black Priests. Then we've heard a lot as well about a possible Thor 5. And personally, if you know me and you watch the channel, you know that I love Thor. He's one of my favourites. And he was my OG favourite when the MCU just first started. So I was very excited to hear that Thor 5 was potentially already being, in development. Although it's obviously not as black and white confirmed that it's in development, as more people are thinking and talking about it. But a lot of the time that kind of says that they've greenlit it for another movie. And considering last year with Thor Love and Thunder, and the fact that Chris Hemsworth kind of came out after the Limitless series and said that he's kind of taken a break, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that literally just a year later we're already looking at Thor 5. So I don't know if Chris Hemsworth has changed his mind on taking a break from acting, or if it's just in development. However, I think one of the biggest questions people will be asking is who's writing or directing it. And from what we've heard, Taikia Watiti has been thinking about it and could potentially return to direct it, although nothing is confirmed. And it's obviously all of this information is based on the credibility of, inside sources leaking information. It's all speculation, but a lot of the time with these leaks, they build up credibility. I have seen a lot of different places discussing Taika Watiti returning, and I think part of the information was sourced from a book, and I actually cannot remember the name of it. It's something to do with Thor, and then it's like the book special, movie special, something like that. But anyway, Taika discusses in it that he would come back for Thor 5, but they would have to do something very different. They would need a villain stronger than Hela, and I love Hela, one of my favourite villains of all time, and I want her to return. I want to see Hela again, and the fact we're in the multiversal saga says it all. So I think this could be a potential opportunity for us to see the goddess of death again. But we shall continue with the leaks. Taika Waititi says the villain has to be stronger than Hela, and you know, I don't necessarily think that that's enough to make it a great movie, because Gorr the God Butcher was supposed to be a formidable villain, and as many people have pointed out, we didn't actually even see him butcher one god in the film. Apologies. At the very beginning, when he first uses the Necrosword, he kills his god, or the god he was worshipping. But then after that, we only see, I don't even think, a handful of victims already dead. And then that's it. So, Gorr the God Butcher, I don't know how much of a name he was able to get for himself, considering that it didn't look like he butchered that many gods. Like, I'm trying to think who or how many did he actually kill, and I can only think of two. One being his own god at the start of the movie, and the second being the large white beast-looking god where Lady Sif was. And I gotta say, when I saw that in the trailer, I was really hoping we would see that god alive before it was murdered, because it looked amazing, and I love animals, so I love when the MCU, you know, features different creatures, beasts, animals, and that looked like some animal. So I was quite disappointed that we never got to see that alive, or necessarily its followers, for example, who may also look similar. There's plenty of things that could be criticised in Thor Love and Thunder. Personally, was it my favourite? No. Do I hate it? No. And often what I find is every time I watch it, I think to myself, this gets way too much hate for what it actually is. But I am actually going to touch on that subject shortly. But when you actually watch the film, yes, the humour is probably the largest issue. And then second to that, I suppose, is just, I'm not really sure if enough work was done to make Gorr as formidable as he could have been. And then after that, I honestly can't think of much more criticisms. I personally really like the visuals, and I would really recommend that you watch the Assembled for Thor Love and Thunder, because they use this new technology for the first time, and I know there were still plenty of complaints about VFX, but I feel like that's just a given nowadays, not because the VFX is bad, but because everyone just seems to love to use that as an excuse to hate something. It wasn't the best film, it wasn't the best Thor film, but it wasn't the worst film of the MCU. Like, it was very much so, in my opinion, quite meant for children and for families. And I think that's where the issue came in, because you're trying to keep it at a level where children will be okay to watch it, but you're also trying to serve an adult audience. And I feel like Taika probably tried to use the humour to appease the adult audience, while the rest of it was mainly for children, but it obviously didn't go down well. If he does come back for Thor 5, I know for sure that he, of all people, knows that it cannot be like Love and Thunder, and that it needs to be significantly different from any other Thor story, or just anything we've seen of Thor ever. has to be very different. And Chris Hemsworth has also come out and said that he would, but the tone would have to be very different, and just the story itself, but it would still have to allow the character to evolve instead of just making a film for the sake of having another Thor film. What's the story? Does it make sense to do another film? And will it allow the first 4 Thor films, all the work done on that, to continue, and it makes sense? I definitely want a Thor 5. From what I've heard of all these leaks, Hercules will be in it, but I just hope he has a significant role. I'll say it this way. My favourite moments of the film were Zeus flicking Thor too hard and Hercules in the end credit scene. And it would be the biggest letdown of the MCU if Hercules didn't appear in the next Thor film, because he's teased. And as well, it's not just like any side character that just so happens, to be in it. Hercules is a hero in his own right, and definitely in the Marvel comics. So for him to enter the MCU, he has to be center stage. So I think, we all kind of assume that it'll be, Hercules versus Thor, and eventually they'll go from foe to friend. I also know a lot of people are hoping for Beta Ray Bill, and I think it would be really amazing to see. But whether it works or not is a different story, because there's no point saying, oh, let's put Beta Ray Bill in it if it doesn't make sense with the story. Taika is saying we need a villain stronger than Hela. That's not Hercules. I don't interpret that as Hercules. So I have a feeling that Hercules would be the anti-hero for most of the film until the end, but the villain has yet to be decided. But this doesn't necessarily make it easy for anyone to write what's going to happen, because the end of Thor Love and Thunder obviously set up for Hercules to go against Thor and for a kind of war of the gods situation. However, then Taika saying we need someone stronger than Hela doesn't really give me that idea that that's going to be the story. It's giving me the idea that actually we're going to do something completely different, but we're just going to write Hercules in because it makes sense from the last film. And that's where I would have worries personally, because I really want Hercules to be in this film, but I want it to be done right at the same time. So there's no point including him if it's more of a hindrance than a help. So I don't know. I think that if it's going to happen, whoever is writing and directing needs to really make sure that it makes sense. It's very different. It's a serious version of Thor, and it kind of needs to be a little bit of a tribute to Thor in the MCU, because I think I can say generally that we all kind of realize that by the time Secret Wars comes around, I don't think Thor is going to remain in the MCU. And personally, I believe that he deserves an I Am Iron Man moment where he gets to, help win or sacrifice himself for the greater good like Tony did, because he will have been possibly the longest original Avenger still in the MCU alongside the Hulk. And I have no idea what's going on with Hawkeye, because when I watch it I think, okay, now Hawkeye has Kate Bishop, but then when people are discussing it, everyone keeps saying that Kate Bishop has taken over from him, and I'm like, I didn't really get that from the series. But anyway, between Hulk and Thor, they're the last standing. Even though Clint Barton is still alive in the MCU, he doesn't really look to be that active. So both of them, I feel like Hulk may actually remain in the MCU past Secret Wars, considering that we only got She-Hulk, and obviously there's rumours about Red Hulk and stuff, and World War Hulk the movie. So I feel like he may actually survive Secret Wars. So Thor, I feel like, is a very obvious, going to go at some stage between the next 3 Avengers films or 2. I think Thor will be passing away at some point in the next Avengers, and he deserves a hero moment. But that could conflict with the story of Thor 5, because Chris Hemsworth is very determined that if he returns, it has to be a very drastically different Thor, very serious. And I feel like for a lot of people, the first thing they'll think of is Thor turning evil. And as much as I would like to see that, that won't serve to give him an honourable send-out of the MCU. So I think it's going to be a very world-building film, because I kind of get the expectation that Hercules is going to take over from Thor, being the god that protects Earth at least, or his place in the Avengers. And possibly Beta Ray Bill at the same time, if he can wield Mjolnir or Stormbreaker. But again, Hercules is the character most likely to come back and appear in it, while everything else is just a maybe. So I think they need to be careful, and they need to think of the wider picture if they're looking at it. And considering that there's not a lot of gaps in the MCU slates that we know of for a Thor 5 between now and Kang Dynasty, I'm kind of wondering, is it going to be before Kang Dynasty? Or is it going to be between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? Or is it going to be after Secret Wars? And I don't think it's going to be after Secret Wars, because that just wouldn't make sense. And I don't think it's going to be in between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars either, because apparently Thor is going to have a significant role in the Kang Dynasty as well. So that doesn't give them a lot of time to start making this movie. So they'd want to get a move on if they really want it to happen. I think it would be great to actually have, because he will be the only character to get 5 solo films, and I think he deserves it, to be honest, because he's pretty much sacrificed everyone around him. Well, not, sorry, let me, that's not a good way of saying it. He has lost everyone around him and basically sacrificed living his own life or being happy to protect people and the universe in general. So he deserves an honourable send-off, but with everybody wanting a serious Thor and a different Thor, I have no idea how they're going to do it. I'm very curious and intrigued, and I really hope that they can actually pull it off. And I suppose we shall discuss it next time we have lunch together, or whenever we hear more. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining me in my first Let's Have Lunch chat. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions on everything we discussed. You can also find my socials in the description. Twitter is where I'm most active, but I am on other accounts as well. Make sure to give the video a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you again very soon.